How are you doing during this whole COVID crisis? And has it changed your daily routines or anything like that?
First of all, I'm 14 miles from the nearest town.
Mm.
I'm off the electric grid on a ranch. My closest neighbor is a mile and a half away. My next neighbor is 4 miles away. So definitely I'm removed from the maddening crowd.
Mm.
We have lots to do a lot of Zoom calls during the day, but I miss the social interaction, going to restaurants, having friends. I do have some friends come by, but the reduced uh, social contact is uh, burdensome. That's a problem, and yet
Mm.
you don't want to get that virus. So I'm not going to restaurants. I'm not going. I go to a grocery store just as little as possible. Go by a gas station, but keeping it, keeping, we're keeping away from things. But because I'm on a ranch, I have an olive orchard. We're getting ready for the harvest. We have lots of things that break, plenty to, plenty plenty of things to do, and I'm involved in many activities that I
Mhm.
can do by Zoom. But and I like Zoom. I wish the technology was better, but I will definitely enjoy uh, company and human contact. That I think that gets to be very tiresome. And then when you had the fires and we had a
Yeah,
month or month and a half of air you couldn't breathe,
yeah.
unhealthful air, it was worse than Los Angeles in the 50s. It was bad
Mm.
right where I am. I'm 2 hours north of San Francisco, an hour north of Sacramento.
I was watching the panel before, and Jim Newton had said during the panel that people outside of California may have misunderstood you and what you did well as governor and just for the state in general. What would you have liked them to know about you and you yourself and your style of leadership?
I think they know about as much as I want them to know. I mean,
That makes it easy. There have been a few biographies, but there's nothing else that you would have wanted to get out there.
if I want to get it out there, I'll write it myself. And I do write. I have a little, very short piece coming out in not this week, but next week's New York Review of Books election section. So I have a few thoughts on the election, on Trump and Biden, and what the stakes are.
Since you're writing about politics and you've already been in them, do you see that society itself has become a little more politicized and everything that's going on right now?
Trump, because of his outrageous behavior, has definitely politicized the society. The Trump supporters, the more active ones, they get very excited. The people around Colusa County, you see a pickup truck going by with a big Trump flag flying around, uh, and so the Trump people are activated. Now on the other side, I've never seen such interest and desire to get rid of a president. So the Democrats feel this is a life and death moment, and not just Democrats, independents, uh, Green Party members, socialists, um, and moderate Republicans. I would say there's a Lincoln Project, which is going after Trump. So yeah, I would say it's politics on steroids. That Trump uh, has excited uh, the country in a bad way, but also in a good way, depending upon how the turnout is and what happens. But I do think he's been, if I, he's not been the norm. Not that
Mhm.
American presidents by any means have been anywhere close to perfect, but he has been so far off the deep end on his continuous lying, um,
Mm.
his total failure on the virus, the obfuscation, the change, the absolute failure to get the testing we need to get it under control, or even have a clear message like wearing masks. So that's huge. And then, of course, he's tearing up treaties like the Iran Treaty, the Paris Agreement on Climate. I mean, there's so many wild things going on that it's just amazing that 45%, maybe more, of the electorate is very much in the Trump camp. But whatever it is, America has people who like what Trump's doing, and I don't. And secondly, it's divided. whatever you want to say about Trump and Biden, it's splitting the country down the middle. And as Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand.
We have a president now that is, let's just say, a character, good or bad. In your book and just in your history, your political history, has there been anyone, not just as polarizing, but as big of a supposed character, we're just going to keep using that word, as our current president?
No, I don't think anybody. I mean, he's like P.T. Barnum. I don't know what P.T. Barnum, he was supposed to be a great huckster, very clever, flamboyant. But Trump is beyond flamboyant. Just take one thing, just the elimination of 50 different environmental regulations, the absolute withdrawal from dealing with climate change. And I mean, that's unique. And now you can go to all the, whether it's the police misconduct or nuclear danger, or the fact that, why are all these white working class guys who didn't go to college, why are they voting for Trump? Because Trump is saying, what we got isn't right, isn't fair. And these people who used to maybe have a much better job in a factory than now going to Mexico or China, they're irritated. Now, to remedy that in a way to give hope to African Americans, give hope to white or working class, boy, that Biden has I say, he needs to connect with his inner Roosevelt. He needs a big, bold plan, and he's going to have to get some Republicans, or immediately in a couple of years, the Republicans will try to throw it overboard, and we'll be right back in the fix, and maybe we'll have a Trump too.
But since we're talking about the Festival of Books here, and in the panel, you mentioned a lot of philosophers and philosophy, and probably things that I need to read up on, and many viewers need to read up on. What's the best book that you may have read this year, or just recently in general?
All right. I knew you were going to ask that question. I mentioned the book. I have it right here. You can see it, called Half Earth by Edward O. Wilson from Harvard. It's a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Our planet's fight for life. It's not that easy. It's readable enough, but it's very important. What we have to do to maintain the diversity of species on which all life, including human, depends. That's my first book. All right. My second book, of which I'm reading, is by it's about Martin Buber. Martin Buber died in the 1960s. He was a Jewish philosopher. He grew up in Germany. He lived under Hitler until 1938. He developed the idea of dialogue where you are present to the other person, even if you don't agree with them. And through the dialogue, through the meeting, you listen to the other person. It's I, thou, I and you, versus I, it. When it's I, it, you use something. My cell phone, I pick my cell phone up, I have an I-it relationship. I manipulate it. When I talk to you, you're a person with your subjectivity, as am I. That is a relationship that calls for dialogue. Now, dialogue with your friends is one thing. Buber talks about dialogue between the Arabs and the Israelis. We could say between the Chinese and the Americans, or the Russians and the Americans. We've got to find a way to find that common space. Martin Buber is that kind of a guy. And it's his whole history. He knew a lot of the important players. He was there at the beginning of Israel, the beginning of Zionism. And he was there in Germany and saw the beginnings of what was the horror of the Nazi regime. So he's an interesting philosopher. Nobody talks about him anymore, but I can tell you 50 years ago, he was much more common. So I think Martin Buber, A Life of Faith and Dissent, no one else is going to tell you to read it. I'm telling you, it's an interesting book. And even if it isn't interesting, it's good for you, like spinach.
Okay, and on that note, we'll make sure to look out for those. I will. And thank you very much for your time, for both here and on the Festival of Books panel with Gustavo and with Jim Newton. And good luck for the coming year.
Well, thank you, and same to you.